What's up, guys? I just wanted to go over something. I've been getting a lot of questions on what I run in my Atlas tree for SSF for hunting uniques with meticulous appraiser. So this was added, this patch. Basically what it does is it just converts all of your quantity to rarity in a map, which has upsides and downsides that I'll go over. Essentially in SSF, you're limited to what you find yourself. So a lot of builds are dependent on certain uniques. So this node is, I would say, almost strictly an SSF node because in trade, of course, sacrificing quantity means that you're not going to be getting nearly any divination cards, enlightens, enhance, stuff like that. All of these things that rely on quantity that are high value in trade, you're not going to be getting much of at all with this node. But SSF, obviously, it's huge, right? So I tested a lot of different Atlas setups that I'll go over. This is the one that I landed on for now with a few changes that I make while I'm running, depending on what I'm doing. But some of the benefits to this is once you've kind of gathered a lot of the uniques, you can start hiding them through Filter Blade, which is a site that you can change your loot filter to hide and show certain things. So once you've collected a lot of uniques that you no longer care about, you can start hiding them. And initially the problem with this node is there's so many uniques, depending on how hard you use your maps, that you have to hover over a lot of things, and it really makes the map take a long time to complete. But as you collect more and more things, you can start hiding them, and it becomes the reverse, where your maps are much quicker than a non-meticulous appraiser juice map, where you're clicking a bunch of currency and div cards and all this other stuff that it does away with, and you're just hovering over the bases that you want. So some of the downsides, I'd say, is your map sustain. It seems like, I'm not 100% sure how it affects map sustain. I'm assuming it does because it's the map quantity that's going down. However, with a strategy that I'll go over in a minute, it does help a lot with sustain to where you almost don't really have any problems with that. And then obviously you're going to get less resources as you map with meticulous appraiser because you're not getting as many chisels, chaos, and regrets and all these things that you also use to roll your maps. So also go over that as well later for ways around that. So the Atlas tests that I did were, I probably spent 2,000 to 3,000 Atlas respecs doing various tests with anywhere from a sample size to 50 to 100 maps. And I kept the maps non-scarabed and non-sextanted just so that I could get a very similar test with each map that I did. Some of the sample sizes were a little bit lower because I could just tell almost immediately that it was bad, so I just moved on to a different test. I tested Beyond, Exiles, Wandering Path, non-Wandering Path with the certain league mechanics that it makes sense with. Obviously, like Exiles, you wouldn't do Wandering Path. Tested Blight, Breach, Harbinger, Expedition, Harvest. I haven't tested Ritual, but I have an idea that I'll go over that you could probably try that I haven't tried yet. That could be good. What I came out with was, it's not too much of a secret, but it is something that I think properly set up in your Atlas is not entirely intuitive. So the best thing I came out with was Delirium, obviously, Abyss, Legion with 7th Gate and Wandering Path. 7th Gate, you're going to be putting Abyss on the Atlas. You could also do Legion. It's just a little bit more expensive. I don't know exactly how much it is, but I know it's more expensive than Abyss, which is only 2C. And Abyss is actually pretty good value with Wandering Path. So essentially what I went for here was all of the chance to get Abyss Legion nodes here. And I didn't go into anything with splinters. I don't really care about converting the splinters to emblems. I have plenty of those. I didn't go into anything with the chests or the generals because I actually don't want those in my map. And essentially just mostly the chance stuff. And then the same thing with Abyss. Now with Abyss, one thing that I did do is up here, these nodes, it does seem kind of wasteful because you pass through the notables that you're not getting any value out of. But these nodes are so strong that, especially the rare ones here, the 6% to spawn 5 additional rares, when these proc, it's pretty crazy. The pits will just crap out a ton of rares, and then these up here, you could potentially take these out. I don't know exactly how they work when it says at least magic. I'm not sure if that helps upscale some of the monsters to rares. Either way, though, something I noticed is you get to a point where you have so much MF through the map, the altars in your gear, that the magic mobs actually are dropping a considerable amount of uniques, believe it or not. So I feel like this is still worth it for the 3 points. And then obviously Meticulous Appraiser and taking all of these enhanced effect to your maps up here. This is a big deal with Wandering Path, scaling these up to 4%. And in the full wheel here, I go through Harbinger to get just an extra chance to get Harbinger. And then the map nodes, so these, I sometimes will just take these out and put them into other various things. Maybe chance to get Expedition, just some various things here. Like you could do the bigger bomb effect for Expedition, so it's quick. There's a few things you can do with them, but if I'm doing really juice maps, I'll take these out and put them in something useful and then put them back in. And then obviously chance to get deli here, and then the permanent deli nodes. That way you're not having to worry about it running out. So after I figured out what I've considered to be probably the best for just overall unique drops, the next thing obviously is the Scarabs to use and the sextants. So the sextants in SSF obviously you're kind of limited, but the ones that I found to be the most impactful obviously is going to be adding an Abyss and adding a Legion to the map. The other ones, not too big of a deal. You can do increased magic pack size. What that does is it actually increases your chance to get more altars, because the altar mobs are a lot of times magic, so increasing the pack size of them means that when you kill more of them, you're increasing your chance to get an altar. And I'll go over why that's important in a minute. And then this one here is decent because it just adds extra rares. There's a lot of things you can add. It's not necessarily like a deli mirror to guarantee that you get deli is pretty decent. Adding Beyond helps as well. Personally, Beyond for me, it's one of those things that some people might like it. It's really strong. The only thing I don't like about Beyond is it slows the maps down a little bit, especially in my current setup. I'm not like hugely min-max, so I don't have like insane amounts of damage. But if you had like a Headhunter, or if you were a little bit less MF and more damage oriented, running slightly less juiced maps, Beyond is definitely a good value. So the Scarabs, you can run a mixture of different things. I personally like to run Legion. Obviously unique, whatever you have is great, but Gilded is pretty good value. Gilded unique is the only one I run. If I do get, so I have, where is it? Let's see. So there's additional projectiles. I might have already run them, I did. But if you do get maps with additional projectile, what that does is when you have an Abyss with a Spire, so the Abyss Scarab guarantees that you get a Stygian Spire, and if you have a map with additional projectiles, it's 2, and it scales that up to 3 with Wandering Path. So when you put this Scarab in with that map, the Spire is going to spawn 3 sets of 3 pits instead of 3 sets of 2. So it's very, very good. The thing to keep in mind is it can be very rippy, because the Abyss mobs that spawn that go invisible, sometimes you'll have like 10 plus of them, and they'll go invisible and you can't kill them unless they get in range of you. So you have to like almost play a little mini game where you're running through them trying to like, get them to be vulnerable and then kill them. So it can be very rippy. Just keep that in mind if you do that. But this Scarab is very good. Polished is also really good because it does increase the amount of monsters. And then Rusted Abyss is, these 3 in terms of value are all like extremely good. Same thing with Legion. you don't have to run either of these. You can just run a normal one. The Warhorde is just chests, I believe, so it's not a big deal. And then this one adds a general, which if you can, reliably handle them and not die and lose portals, then it's fine. I like to not run these and just convert these to Reliquary because I feel like this is the most important Scarab of all. You don't need this. I ran plenty of maps with Rusted, got plenty of T1 drops. Same thing with Polished, but this is the most important one. So if you're going to convert stuff with Harvest to a single Scarab, this is the most important one. So the character setup basically is, I've tested a lot of different things. I tested Ascetic. I tested less MF, more like combs with the helm and some other stuff. This is a setup I landed on. It's a general MF setup with a quant amulet. Ascetic I lose currently with my setup, just too much damage. Lastly, with Lightning Arrow, it was so overpowered with such minimal investment in your gear that you were able to run Ascetic and juice maps, and it was like free. This league, you kind of want to have you want to have everything. You want to have your +2 fracture bow. You want to have, all your Proj tattoos and everything, which I don't have all of them yet. So it's, there's things to add. So potentially if you had everything, you could run Ascetic probably reliably. But this is the setup that I landed on. So there's also something to consider: quant and rarity diminish. So, there's graphs you can look up on that, but essentially anywhere from 40 to 60 is kind of like a sweet spot. Past that, you're getting value, but you're not getting an insane amount, especially if you're sacrificing survivability or speed. The quantity is very important though for Meticulous Appraiser, because you have to remember you're losing all of your quantity. So that makes two things very important: player quantity, and then also altars in your map. So in these maps, what I'll do is, Bog's a good example of a boss rush map where the door into the boss is pretty predictable upon entering the map. So you would just rush to the door, kill the boss, and then turn around and complete the map as normal. And you don't activate any of the league mechanics. That's important. Do the entire map, make sure there's 0 remain or close to it, and then after you've hit all the quant altars, start doing the league mechanics. A lot of people, I feel like this is the misconception that it's not worth doing that. And I would say, if you're not doing Meticulous Appraiser and you're like hunting div cards, for example, you could make the argument that you can kind of do a little bit of both. Go through the map, do some of the league mechanics, and then click the altars on the way. But with Meticulous Appraiser, your quantity starts at 0. So every quant altar you get is a massive multiplier. If you get, let's say, 100% quant through altars, that means you're dropping double now the amount of loot, essentially. Whereas without Meticulous Appraiser, that's not the case, because you're adding quant to the map by getting a quant altar, but you're already starting at a very high amount, sometimes 200 or 300%, right? So just on a final note here, before I showcase a map, I wanted to show that I really haven't done that much juice Meticulous Appraiser mapping. I have like 10 characters at level 95 plus in this league, so I've kind of just been playing around. I also did 100 plus winged divination scarab farm in Crimson Temple to try and get apothecaries, and I got really unlucky. I only got one. So, but I'll just show you here let's see here. This is the POE ladder. This kind of tracks like all the uniques that everybody has found, and this is where I'm at right now with what I've found. So I've gotten everything up to T2, and I only have a few T1s left and 5 out of 13 T0s. So the strategy that I'm using definitely works. The T1s I've gotten, anywhere from 5 to 20 duplicates of some of them. And the T0s, it's very, very random, but I think if you're doing the strategy that I'm doing, you can get about a T0 a day. I've gotten 2 T0s in a day. I think it was kind of random. I've gotten none in a day, but I haven't really ever gone a full day juicing with this setup, because I have other things going on and whatnot. So yeah, just wanted to kind of cover that, and I'll record a map for you guys and let you check it out. All right, so I'm just going over the gear here so you can see. Same stuff that I showed. This on the Atlas. Same Scarabs that I had. And let me show my potions. Standard. Hit the deli mirror first, rush to the boss door. It's usually linear. I usually put a TP in there. Hit the Rowan-S first. That way you enrage the boss. And deli actually makes this boss easier because he gets stuck in animation. Sometimes permanently, sometimes about half the time. It just depends. He's pretty tanky when he's ghosted. This is double boss, so it's like can be kind of rippy, but the reason also why I use the Shaper Scarab here is sometimes it's like 50-50-ish around there. You'll get Shaper animation on when you kill the boss, and he drops a ton of uniques for some reason. It like buffs the boss in some way. I'm not sure how it works, but it also adds a decent amount of blues and rares to the map. You could also use Elder Scarab, either one, Rusted if either one is fine. And something I want to go over too real quick about Beyond is one of the reasons why I don't like Beyond is the idea of this strategy is to funnel as much of the map into the end after the altars are hit as possible. And the problem with Beyond is you end up getting a good majority of your Beyond mobs while you're doing the map, which is fine. You're still going to be getting a lot of rares out of it. But I just wanted to kind of do as much as I could to funnel everything to the end after all the altars had been hit. Because like I said, it's such a big quant multiplier. So just kind of clearing the map here, trying not to hit any of the abysses. That's kind of like a thing to keep your eye on while you're doing the map. Hitting all the quant altars that I can. And the Shaper's balls, I'll just hit those as I'm kind of through the map because you don't want to be bothered too much with stuff like that. The Harbingers, if I can, I'll wait to kill them until after the map. They're not super juiced, right? Because I don't have like the powerful Harbinger boss or whatever, so it's not a big deal. But I will, if I can, wait to kill those until after I've finished the map. I would say one of the most annoying things about this is remembering, when you have this many abysses and legions, remembering where they are. The faster your character is without buffs that require you to kill things, so like I usually call it like looting speed. The faster your character's loot speed is, the better it is to go back and backtrack, and the less you have to like remember, because you can just kind of zoom around the map. So I've considered making a shield charge swap setup. You can definitely do it. You could even do a move speed swap setup, but either or. If you have Maloney's Quiver and a bow, you definitely get more gem leveling, but it's kind of like irrelevant really. So here I'm going to start killing the Harbinger because I'm like low on mobs, only 18 remains, so I might as well just finish up. And then start activating all the weak mechanics. So, like I said, I currently, in this loot filter that's being displayed, I have nearly everything hidden. I have only one death there, it's fine. Usually, I would say I get a death every other map on average. It's fine, it is what it is. You're Giga MF, it's gonna happen. Those Abyss mobs is I would say 90% of my deaths is those Abyss mobs. The other 10% or so is usually like a Proximity Shield Legion mob. The best way to deal with that is to place your totems in the Proximity Shield. And then also the reason I like using Blink Arrow is because you can kind of take advantage of the aggro that it causes. So you can put your totems down and you can blink, and a lot of times they'll just run right into it, and the totems will deal damage if they're inside the proximity shield. So I am running one inspired warning with this just to get a little bit of extra juice to help me. And anytime you see the delirium stuff on the ground, the bigger white patches, you definitely want to hit those because those spawn rares. Gotten quite a few good items out of hitting those. Obviously hit as much as you can, but those ones specifically, make sure that you hit. And also, I don't have gold or magic fine on my gold pot, or any pot really, because I haven't did Katarina much, but ideally you probably would have that. And then of course, if you had a mage blood, it's like huge value, right? Because you can amplify the potion, and then you're getting, I think it's like almost 120% rarity from one potion. So it's definitely a big deal if you have a mage blood, but obviously I do not. So. I'm also using steel skin. It's kind of nice. I don't have that much strength to get it very high. I think it's level 14. But I tried a few things. I tried throwing on a banner. So here you can see this guy's kind of annoying. I just dropped my totems and I dropped my blink arrow, and he's just kind of in there. Come back in, repeat. But yeah, steel skin, it's pretty nice considering my health pool's kind of low. It's pretty good value. And I just have it on force move, so it's always going off. Sometimes the legions in here, they're usually pretty good in Bog, but something I wanted to go over is to consider other maps. So you can definitely do things like dunes. City Square, I don't really like it. It kind of messes with the legions. There's quite a few other maps that you can do that are decent. I would say dunes is probably highest outside of this map in terms of like efficiently getting legions to have like, you know, all the mobs. The only thing is the boss on dunes is a little bit further away. It's very easy to get to, but it's a little bit further away, so I don't really prefer it. Also, the main reason for this map is the enraging the boss. It's not, from what I've noticed, it's not that big of a deal. It definitely get, you know, some extra loot. But this leads me into another thing that I wanted to mention that I didn't ever test, but maybe one of you guys might want to test it, is ritual. So I had an idea that if you were to do ritual and kind of invest into it a little bit, either Wandering Path or not, I think Wandering Path is pretty hard to beat. But if you did do ritual on this map, I noticed that when you enrage the boss, if he's ghosted and enraged and everything, really juiced up, and you get the ritual at the end, you can, you know, start the ritual after you clear the map in the boss room, and you're going to get the boss 4 times if you have 4 rituals. And it drops a lot of loot. It's almost like it doesn't diminish how much he drops. If it does, it's not much. And you know, if it's pretty good value. I don't know how worth it would be because it's going to be kind of RNG oriented, right? You're not going to get it every time. But it's something to consider if somebody wanted to try that. The other thing to mention is Blight. Blight's pretty good. It takes a little bit of time to do, so you have to consider that. But it's one of those mechanics that you can wait until the end to do. And it does spawn quite a bit of rares, and sometimes you get the boss, which is a unique mob. Drops quite a bit of loot. So the map's clear now. I'm going to just kind of pop all these chests here. And a few mobs here left over. And so I'm gonna turn the loot filter after I finish popping this to a global, like, just show every unique so you can get kind of an idea of how many dropped. This map wasn't, it was kind of a mediocre map in terms of alters. It wasn't bad, it wasn't insane. It was just decent, so you get kind of an idea of how much is dropping here. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments, and I'll leave any relevant information I can in the description. And yeah, enjoy. Good luck.